So
So
I've
it's
got we're live.
yay! Hello, good evening, everybody. Good morning, the ones who are in Australia and Asia. How are you, Simone?
I am awesome. And just I don't know, we're just giving it a second because the translators need to find us. So I like that, the
Oh,
way we are here and the translators need to find us. So even if just a few seconds. So Donovan and I are here to talk about relationships done different. And one of the things that we were talking about the other week is the relationship that you have with you. Okay, I think the translators may have found us.
have they? Hello,
I
guys.
don't know. I'm going with yes.
Okay, we are having translations into, I think, like over 7 languages, right?
Yep.
How does it get any better than that? Okay, so let's go. Let's get started. So, Simone, relationships done different. It's the class you're gonna have this month, and when we think about people, how many people do you see who are not into having one as the being they are, who actually gave up their bodies, gave up their creations, only care for what others are making work or not in their lives just because of their points of view or their justifications? Is that really common? Do you see
I have
that?
no idea what you're asking me.
I'm asking you, in general, how many people do you see who are not into themselves, who are not looking to their relationships they have with them, and they are simply focusing on the other ones, and just forget they are part of their creation, and they are really worried about connecting to people. So, is that common seeing people doing that? What do you say?
You're a very interesting interviewer. Okay. I think what you're asking me or what you're saying and then asking me to comment on it is more, do people actually have relationships with themselves? Is that correct?
Yeah, instead of focusing on the other ones.
Instead of focusing on the other ones. And you mean the other ones, do you mean like the people that they're in relationship with?
No,
What's the
they.
other?
I see lots of people who are really worried about the other relationships they see their friends have, their parents have, their
Oh,
best friends have.
okay. All right. So you're saying, okay, so sorry, translators, let's break it down here for a second
I'm
because
sorry.
get in
Let's.
your head as well. So you mean that people are using other relationships as a reference point, like for what they should or should not be choosing?
And not looking into themselves as part of a
Yeah, what
relationship.
works for them. Look, I think people do that continuously, Donovan. I think people, I mean, for myself, it's like for a really long time, I was really good at doing like 3 month relationships. I would, at one stage even some of my friends called me the 3 month wonder because I would do a 3 month relationship and then I was like, I'm done. But to me, I was like, I had a great time. Did you? Okay, well, now it's time to move on. But that wasn't looked at as something that was very acceptable. You're supposed to find, a boyfriend. You're supposed to have, be in a relationship for a really long time. That is totally fine if somebody chooses that. And I think it's totally fine, whatever you desire to choose for yourself as well. And at one stage, I was like, I'm not doing a relationship. And I was talking to Gary Douglas, who is the founder of Access Consciousness, and he to me, he goes, why not? And I went, because I don't see a good one, so why would I choose one? But I realized after a conversation with him, what I was doing was I was looking outside of me at everybody else's relationship and going, no, I wouldn't like that. 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 And I was using that as this basis, like this platform to choose something for me. So the other thing I realized was there was no choice in that. And I think so many of us have this place where we function from what I call a no choice universe and you don't choose. So I made the choice to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to have a look at this. And what if I, destroyed and uncreated, like changed my points of view about relationship and maybe something else is possible. So I did that. And it was like 1 week later that I met someone who I ended up being in a relationship with for 8 years. And I was like, wow, that was interesting. Because I changed my point of view about using other people's relationship as I want to say, like, as a reference point, as a definition for what I choose. And I started to have a look at what actually works for me. And yes, I think people look at their parents all the time and they look at their friends to choose. What if you actually just looked at, like, what actually works for you? You might desire something that's completely different to what anybody else is choosing. And I think when you start to look at that, then your life becomes greater and happier and easier and all of that.
When you think of those days where you chose not to have long-term relationships, were you totally based on definitions and conclusions of your parents or friends and people who worked with you, or just your point of view with the guys you met who were really like into the point of view of your body, of your beauty, or of the money you made in your business, this kind of thing?
I would say all of the above and more. At that stage, though, I wasn't very successful. I didn't have a lot of money. I was, I mean, I didn't. Wouldn't have been able to tell, but it wasn't as though I was on the wealthy spectrum. I definitely chose guys who were judgmental of me, and I tell you, it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't make sense, but this is what I did, and I see so many people do this as well. Is I chose men who judged me and my body the same as I did, because somewhere if I hooked up with them and they had the same judgments, you could validate my judgments. You'd be like, "Woo, see, they must be real," rather than. And this is a really interesting topic. Is I would have rather chosen people to show up who judged me so that I didn't have to receive. And the first time that I actually was with someone who was just really kind and caring, I was like so freaked out because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? This person is so kind. And when I ask a lot of the times in classes, are you willing to receive kindness? Nearly everybody says, oh, yes. And I'm like, really? Are you really willing to receive someone who sees you for you with everything that you be? Like all of your idiosyncrasies, everything, and willing to look at you and your body and just be kind and not judge you. Are you really willing to receive that energy? And there's a lot of vulnerability that comes with that, with actually receiving it, because you're just like, whoa, you've got all of your barriers and limitations and walls down, and just being with another person and being, hi. And to me, that is one of the most, beautiful, amazing things that you can choose. And yet, so many of us don't do that. We choose someone to show up in our lives who is mean, controlling, judgmental. It's like so that we do not have to be all of us. Well, what I would like people to get is that with relationships done different, and there's a book that I wrote with my ex, Brendan Watt, Relationship, Are You Sure You Want One? That's literally what it's called. Uh, I would like people to get that they have choice, and this is your life. Like, this is it. So what would you like to choose today, rather than, when you're turning 60, 80, whatever, 100, going, damn, I wish I would have chosen that. Or I wish I would have chosen to get out of the relationship that wasn't nurturing for me and my body. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean that you can't change it. It's like, if it's not working for you, it's not working for you. If you're going to choose relationship, make sure it's something great, is where I would like everybody to choose from.
Cool. It's interesting what you said because in general, you people don't notice that, and they are all the time looking for a connection with people, for a point of connection with people. What you did was a creation. And can you talk a little bit about connection and creation? What's the difference between them? Because when you have a connection or a creation, do people realize that? Do you see that in classes that people know the difference between a connection and a creation?
No,
Or
look,
do
I
you?
think Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, he said something at one stage which I thought was brilliant. He said, if you walk into a crowded room and you look across at someone and you think, oh, I must have them, he said, run. He said, you've usually been with them in a previous lifetime. And then in this lifetime, you're like, oh, I must have them. And, I remember he said that. And many, many years ago, um, I was with someone, I was dating someone, and I remember him saying to me, "This is the weirdest thing." He went, "But I feel like I've been married to you. I feel like I know you, like from another lifetime." And I was like, "Yep." So just because you know them in another lifetime doesn't mean you have to be with them in this lifetime. You can, but people look for this commonality of purpose. And a lot of the time, so I was looking for the commonality of purpose with judgment. Or people, I mean, you're Brazilian, I'm Australian. It's like, say you're traveling, and it's like, and then some people go, "Oh, you have this, like, oh, you're Australian or you're Brazilian." So you have this commonality, or you grew up in the same place, or you went to the same school, or you have the same job or a similar job, or you both like the same, sport, or you both like, and they have this thing where they go, "Oh, see, we were meant to be together because we like the same things." Liking the same things, being born in the same place, going to the same school or the same job does not make a great relationship. That just happens to be something that you're both choosing. But here's the thing, it's that's to me is the relationship that gets more focused. It's like got this smaller energy rather than if you just expand out, right? And if you're listening to me and you're going, "How do I expand out?" Literally, it's like look at the energy that you be, and when you're all like you're, closed off and you're going, "Oh, this person," and you're honing in on this person rather than breathe. And it's like, okay, let's expand out. And it's like, it's the truth. Would this person be a contribution to me? Will this be fun? Will this be easy? Will I learn something? These are definitely questions that you can ask. And if you get a no, ladies and gentlemen, it's a no. So um, you cannot sort of define that energy of creation. It's basically when two people are being together, and this doesn't necessarily mean just people who are having sex, right? This is not just lovers and boyfriends and girlfriends. This is, friendships, people you work with. If you're going to create with somebody, you should be creating at least 20 times greater than what you would if you were alone. So what I see a lot, Donovan, is when people are in relationships and you meet someone and you're like, "Yay," you have a great time. And then you start going, "Oh, they probably won't like this part of me." So they start cutting themselves off and making themselves smaller and less than, going, and they judge, "Oh, this person probably won't like this. Oh, they probably won't like this either. I better not show them this. I better not talk about this." Rather than what if you were like, "You know what? Here I am and I change every day. Are you okay with that? Like, let's go." And what if you didn't start to cut yourselves off, like make yourself smaller for other people? What if you actually chose to be greater? And then the person you choose to be with contributes to you being greater. And you have what we would refer as a creationship rather than a relationship. Because literally, the definition of relationship means the distance between two things. So you're trying to create a relationship, which is the distance between two things, rather than, what can I create with this person? Like, how much fun could we have together? How could we empower each other to be more?
And how often do people ask themselves what they are really looking for into a relationship? And the other one, I mean, sometimes I see people just asking about the others, about the things they want to accomplish, the things they want to do. But I see people who forget to ask themselves what they really do want to do in a relationship or not, or ask themselves about the other ones, whether that relationship is working for them as well, not only for them. Does
Yes,
that?
yes, yes. I mean, I'm sure you've had it, Jonathan, when people like women will come along and be like, I'm going to have him. But they don't ask you, does that work for you? It's like, there's nothing, they just decide, "Oh, this person's going to work for me." And it's like, well, do you even know like what they desire? Have you even asked them? And that's like the general thing that most men and women do is just go, "Yep, I'll have them." And it's like, do you fit into their world? Not fit, but it's like, are they actually choosing you? And one of the things that I see occur a lot is what we would call choosing and chosen. So a lot of the times when somebody comes along and chooses you, you are now the chosen, right? So then you have this energy of like, "Oh, okay, well, they chose me, so I will say yes," rather than somebody choosing you, you still get to choose and be like, okay, so actually, is this what actually what I choose? Is this what I desire? And I love that you asked about like what actually does work for you. I mean, I don't know, it's been a few years now that I broke up. We broke up relationship with Brendan Watt, and when I looked at it, and so many people go, "Oh, what's the next relationship?" And I looked at it and went, "Do I want to be in a relationship?" And at first, I thought I did, and then I was like, "I'm not so sure." So what I did for me, and I highly recommend this, guys. No matter where you're at in your life, if you look at this, and I just come home, it was I actually did this in like March 2020 because I was all of a sudden I was at home just going, okay, now what? After traveling for 10 months of the year. So I wrote down like some topics and I wrote down relationships, sex, business, money, body, and geographical. So for me, all of those topics I wanted to have a look at. And most people put relationship and sex in the same category. I get it. They do show up together a lot, but relationship is relationship and sex is sex, right? You don't have to be in a relationship to have sex, and some relationships don't even have sex. So then, and the same as money and business. Most people put them in the same category, but that's not true. It's like money is money, business is business. So I wanted to look at what would I truly like to create and like to choose and ask for in all of these different places. And geographically, I was looking at, well, where do I want to live? Do I actually desire to live in Australia? And I looked at the relationships and sex. Let's talk about that part because I realized there was aspects of relationship I really enjoy. So I wrote down those, like what's the aspects of relationship I enjoy? And then I looked at sex and it was like, okay, so what would I like this to look like? Because if I'm not choosing relationship, I don't want to not choose sex. I love sex. So it's like, why would I not have that too? But how can I ask for this if I'm not choosing relationship? And it was really interesting to look at it because I even realized, I love talking possibilities with people. It's like, cooking in the kitchen with a glass of wine and some nice music and just creating, right? And it's like that's one of the aspects that I really enjoy. But I also have that with a few really great friends of mine. I'm not having sex with them, but I have that. So it's like I had to recognize that's an aspect of relationship that I really enjoy. And it's like, so start looking at what it is for you. I live in a pretty big house, and because I used to live in this with Brendan and his son, Nash. And I remember a friend of mine, Chris, came up and he was like, "Wow, this house is quite what did he say? It's like it's quite indulgent for one person, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yep," and I really like it. And I have like spread out, like I have beautiful office, I have a gym, I have a guest room, I have all of that. And I looked at the energy of someone moving in, and in this 10 seconds, in this moment, that is not what I would choose. For me, I love the whole energy of, separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms. And they used to do it in Downton Abbey, like in the old days. And you'd have this, door that was interconnecting. So you could sleep in each other's bed every night or you could choose. To me, that worked. And I think if you have the courage to have a look at what it is that would work for you, then you can have a great relationship because you can start to like include your partner with that and ask them as well. Like say like sleeping in a bed together. Personally, I love when I get to sleep with someone and it's like I love that, it's such a contribution with the bodies. I just as much love sleeping in a bed on my own. So how does that work if you're in a relationship? Well, for the last relationship I had, we we a lot of the nights, like, probably, I don't know, 2, 3 nights of the week, one of us would go sleep in the guest room because we liked our space. And people would go, "Oh, is there a problem?" And it's like, no, we're actually choosing this so that there is not a problem. And that's a really key piece of information. It's like, what are you not choosing that would allow you to like eliminate any of the problems that are showing up because you're not willing to have the courage to have a look at what actually works for you and what you'd like to choose.
When you said about the list you did last year, and many people do that, but I notice people doing those lists, and they put expectations, loads of expectations in those lists and definitions. And then when you tell them, listen, you just, all you have to do is ask questions. And then people ask questions based on expectations, based on definitions and conclusions, or what they should get or not get, should be or not be, should have or not have. Can you, for us today, do a practice or an exercise for these kind of people who just create based on expectations and definitions?
Yes, and you are so correct. So let me explain how this works, right? So as Donovan said, like if you have these, expectations and projections. So when you have expectations and projections of what something should look like, of how it should show up, or you have expectations and projections of somebody, then what occurs is you create this separation between you and them, and you create a judgment, and it creates the rejection of something actually showing up for you that is greater, because you've already defined it. You've already put it in this box, rather than asking, okay, so what would it take to have kindness show up in my life? What would it take to have someone show up in my life who is kind, caring, and nurturing? Simple. Okay. And it's not about like, I need him to be 6'2", he needs to drive this car, he needs to, have this level of education or this amount of money in their bank account, or that's so two-dimensional reality. What if you had all of you had no expectations and projections of who you were asking to show up in your life, and yet you asked for the energy? Like I asked quite a few years ago, what would it take to have more kind people show up in my life? Because I was like, oh, that'd be nice, with everyone that I work with and play with and etc. The kindness of people. And so all the projections and the expectations, the judgments that create the rejections and the separations, where you destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And that is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement, which I'm sure Becky's going to put up the little link there. You can go to theclearingstatement.com where Dr. Dane here talks about it. But even if you just keep running that, all the expectations, projections, judgments, rejections, and separations I have of this person, of me, of this relationship, destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds, and keep doing it again. So all the projections, expectations, judgments, rejections, and separations you have of this person, of the relationship, etc., we destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Now, what the clearing statement does, and like when you run this, it's about all the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you have that you've already created around this, and just deleting them. Like it's like getting on your computer and just going delete, 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 delete for everything, so that you have like this brand new slate and you get to create from a different space. A movie that Gary Douglas always recommends is 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore, because 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore, it's like every day she wakes up and she forgets the day before. So right now, what if you destroyed and uncreated your past, and then asked today, what is it that you would truly like to show up and create and actualize as your life? And everything at that is times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Because how many of you try and create a relationship based on your past relationships? I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask for greater. It's like, it's like, what would it take for today to be greater than yesterday? What would it take for every relationship that you have to be greater than yesterday? And I mean, like, not just, people that you're having sex with. I mean, everything. It's like with family, with friends, with colleagues, all of it. What would it take for your life to be greater than it was yesterday?
Wow. Yeah. Just ask questions, right? And be vulnerable so as to receive what you get. Some people are not vulnerable to receive. Is there a kind of secret so as to be
Let's say,
vulnerable and receive from what you
yeah,
get? I mean,
it's a really big topic. Like receiving is not, you don't just wake up one morning and go, I'm going to receive. It's like, could you? Sure. Do you? No. So my suggestion is practice. Like if something's not showing up in your life, practice receiving. But here's the thing, it's like, how many of you go, I don't know, someone says, hey, can I buy you dinner? or buy you a coffee or something, and you go, no, 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 I've got it. I'll get this. The next time someone is actually offering to give to you, and it's around Christmas time, guys. So practice receiving, practice random acts of receiving, and just say, be present with it. Like they're buying you a coffee, right? Be present with it and be like, thank you. That'd be great. Thank you so much. Because there is such a gifting in receiving, and there's receiving in gifting. Like, do you notice when you pay for something or you do something for someone and they truly receive it, you receive too. You're like, oh, wow, that was really cool, you know? And then when someone just sort of takes it and doesn't receive, you're like, all right, that wasn't much fun. And the people who have more that show up in their lives are good at receiving. It is something I have practiced and practiced and practiced, because 21 years ago, one of the first conversations I ever had with Gary Douglas was about receiving. And he said to me, you would be a lot better off if you were open to receiving. He said, you'd be happier, your life would be easier, you'd make more money, your business would be more successful. I met him at a Mind, Body, and Spirit festival. So I had my big stand there with the business I had. And I thought he was crazy. I honestly, and the next day I went up to him and I went, I have no idea what you're talking about with this receiving. I honestly thought that my life here on planet Earth was I had to give. I thought I had to wake up every day and say, what can I give? What can I give? What can I give? What can I give? So we have something that we talk about in Access that, is like the give and take program, where it's give and take. So you're never actually truly gifting and receiving. So everywhere that you've been functioning from the give and take program, instead of gifting and receiving, where you destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and panona, and shorts, boys and beyonds. Let me put this into something that might be a little bit more interesting for you all. Have a look at the next time you're actually having sex, copulating with someone. And even if you can't remember the clearing statement, right? Just say all that stuff that Simone was talking about, or POC and POD for short. It's like POC and POD everywhere that you are having sex from giving and taking, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds, and then relax and ask, okay, so what would this be like, and what else is possible if I was functioning from gifting and receiving? And everything that is times a Godzillion, we destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
So, Simone, what else is possible to receive from this class? Relationships done different.
So much. Like, there really is so much. And here's the thing. It's like, we've touched on quite a few big topics. And the Relationships Done Different class, you get a manual with it, and we go down so many different roads, and it's really up to you. Like, whoever comes along to the class, you ask a question, the whole class receives from it. So I look at relationships is one of the areas that most people want to look at that they've got it right, and they don't want to admit when something is not great. I am here to tell you that every relationship that you have could be way greater and way better. And what if you ask for that? Like I said before, this is your life. So what if you were asking for greater to show up every day, including all of your relationships? You don't have to be stuck in something that is not working for you. You can choose something different. And if you're in a great relationship now, it's like, what if it was even greater? And I also want to say, you don't have to be in a relationship or desire a relationship to come to this class. One of the things that I noticed by the end of this class is most people end up going, oh, I can have this intimacy with me. I can have a great relationship with me. And to tell you the truth, if you start having a great relationship with you, then you can have a great relationship with others.
Wow. I'm really looking forward to having this class in
Yes.
just 3 weeks, right? In 3 weeks?
I
Yeah.
think it's in 3 weeks.
In three
Yeah. Throughout
weeks. Yeah,
November.
3 weeks.
Yeah. So, and it'll be online, so you can come online. So thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me, Donovan.
Thank you, Simone, for being such a present to us and receiving my invitation, right?
Yes.
For the second time.
Last.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.